I was riding a motorbike across India in July last year when the magic of a very unintended experience took control of my plan. I was actually heading towards Pakistan at the time. I took a wrong turn somewhere and found myself on this road. And that was excellent. And it gave me an idea. We're going to walk through experiencing culture shock and arrive at what I call culture comfort. I'm going to describe how I got to being okay with this situation. I'm going to introduce you to a formula that maps out the change process of newness to familiarity. But first, let's do a bit of immersion. Close your eyes if you like, and consider this scene. It's a new city. It's nighttime too, perhaps. Your eyes are shifting from side to side, moving with your head and neck, but actually seeing very little. The messages from the retina aren't making it to the right part of the brain because the brain is too busy trying to digest the smells and sounds and sights that are thrust about you in a chaotic tornado of newness. All the while, the brain is trying desperately to maintain the age-old task of fitting in, while knowingly standing out. The eyes again shifting, looking for a point of reference, of familiarity, something to grasp on and return order to our systems. We're lost. We're alone. We're confused. And then we've got it. It's to go across the street, of course, towards the sunburnt and dated Coca-Cola sign, sitting tilted over the doorway. Shabby, sure, but recognizable. Does this sound like it could be culture shock? Is it vaguely familiar with something you might understand as culture shock? But we're asking, does it have to be this way? We tend to assume when we arrive that what we know is the norm. And everything going on about us which we're not familiar with in any given situation is the oddity. I'm going to throw it out there and say, we're a little afraid of newness. But I think that's okay. So what can we do to overcome it? What can we do to throw it out the window and conquer that fear of newness? When we encounter a new place, we tend to concentrate on how it may be different to what we know. This is a useful way to compare and contrast lifestyles and practices, sure. Interestingly, it's not what causes culture shock. The real shock comes later, when we try to recreate patterns of behaviour from home. It's like trying to pedal a bike even after the chain has come off. You keep wanting to do things the way you have, without stopping to think that it might not work so well in a new place. So let's take the time to watch, do, and then think about how to achieve the same goals, but in a local way. So I propose these 3 steps to put the proverbial chain back on our bikes. First of all, follow the French example. Être une flâneur, Flâneurie. It means wandering while wandering. Step 2, embrace the space around us and do everyday things. And finally, reflection. We use this as a tool to wrap it all together and create understanding. So, first of all, step 1, as soon as we arrive in a new place, go outside, go for a walk, sit down, have a coffee or a drink, and observe the world around you. The French verb for this is flâneurie. It translates vaguely to simple dawdling. It encourages the magic of the unknown experience to occur. We have to allow time for our surroundings to osmosisize with our psyche. Because people, places, and things are not often how they appear at first glance. So let's rather take the time to think about making ourselves more familiar with difference so that we can become a true part of our new scene. This photo was taken by a friend of mine outside of our apartment in Delhi last year. I'm going to use it to illustrate how I didn't do this. I needed to buy some milk and veggies. I knew 2 things. I knew that a man passed up and down the street each morning with a goat selling milk, and I knew that veggies were sold down the square each night. But for 1 month, I inherently and instinctively went to find a supermarket. I found myself asking later, why would I do this when I know that the locals do it another way? And I think what this shows us is that a common response to a new environment is to avoid the difficult and unusual activities. We get so caught up in the gut-wrenching turmoil of feeling alone and without our usual securities about us that we get forgotten the reason why we embarked on the journey, why we stepped out from the door that day to begin the new adventure. We've lost our motivation and we've misplaced our inspiration. Here, managing this part of the culture shock experience is essentially a question of timing, because as soon as we feel the twang of discomfort, as soon as we see the sight of the challenge on the horizon, we should rush towards the encounter with an optimistic spirit. The sooner we engage with a new experience, it will act as a symbol of willingness and welcoming to our surroundings, and people will notice the effort that we've made. And the novelty of doing something new will become the bridge to belonging with our new place. We have to want to experience the shock of culture. And we can do this by embracing the space around us. This part is the most fun, step 2, I promise you. But before we go into it, I want you to put yourself in the mindset when you have a task to achieve, a mission to accomplish at home. Something annoying and silly like trying to find the right battery for the car key. You're out to the shops for a quick check, you've got a vague idea where to go, but you end up spending the whole day going to 5 or 6 different places and getting a bunch of stuff you didn't need. Imagine doing that in a totally new and unfamiliar environment with no idea and none of your usual securities or guidances around you. Does it bring an adventurous smile to your face? To become comfortable with newness and familiar with strangeness, we have to give ourselves something to do. Go find the milk. Figure out how to dress like a local. Explore. Intrepid. I've found looking for the biggest bookshop in town or the best coffee is usually a good way to achieve this step. Embracing our space creates this newness comfort paradigm, whereas newness to a situation over time decreases. Our culture comfort correspondingly and necessarily increases. As we participate in the daily norms of a place, we'll offset the newness by exposure to the context and dynamics of the situation. And we'll also meet people. But this part is crucial because we'll begin to form that relationship with community. So it's important to recognize the symptoms of culture shock, because it is these that we must seize upon and that will act as the kickstart we need. When things are new and we're still uncomfortable, we internalize our loneliness, we stay away from others. And things that are frustrating, things that are new about that place suddenly become more frustrating. But it's these that we must seize upon. Because if we throw ourselves in the casserole of culture that surrounds us, we'll become distracted by the effort and emerge out the other side energized by that challenge. And so we move into reflection. Reflective practice requires us to step back from a situation and recognize that a challenging experience is all part of a process. And it is the hardest process we can imagine. Self-change. Basic reflection is writing things down, journaling, scrapbooking, blogging, writing to family and friends. The important part is to really get into descriptions and write vividly, because this helps to digest experiences. But why is this the final step? Because reflection allows us to see the big picture. It allows us to see the process of becoming comfortable. It allows us to see and challenge our own benchmarks of normalcy. It in fact reveals that normal is not a static frame of mind, and it is in fact changeable. Culture shock is not exclusive to a travel experience, and it is in fact applicable to whenever and wherever you've exposed yourself to a new situation. Think about the time you started a new job or joined a new church or begun at a new gym. You ask yourself, you always ask yourself, it's part of the human condition. Will they like me? Am I going to fit in? Are they going to think I'm a bit weird? Perhaps even worse, maybe they're going to be a bit weirder than I thought when we first met. I want you to consider this mantra. Observe it, do it, and then think about it. We have to consciously put ourselves into a position to become aware of the space around us. with no filter but curiosity. We have absolutely nothing to lose. Go next to a new place. Actively follow these steps. Throw yourself into the heartbeat of that place and see what happens. Be intrepid about newness and confront culture without the burden of shock.